didn't understand. We had a good conversation. I didn't feel that it was going to happen again.
You didn't issue her any letter of concern,
No.
correct? You didn't issue her a letter of direction, correct?
No.
You didn't move to have any proceedings started to have her suspended, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't note this anywhere in her evaluation, correct?
I did not.
There was testimony about the student-led project, service learning project in the school year. That there was students that wanted to engage in LGBTQ advocacy as part of their service learning project. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now, you had testified that you told Ms. Brenderly to email the parent of the student and make sure the parent was aware. Ms. Brenderly didn't object to it, did she?
She did not.
In fact, she told you she had already planned to do that.
She did. Well, I can't remember if she said that she planned to, but she acknowledged the conversation, and I believe that she was fully aware. Didn't have any issue with doing that. It was not a problem.
When the parent stated that she didn't want the project completed, Ms. Brenderly complied with that, correct?
Correct.
She didn't advocate on the
No.
other side of it, correct?
She did not.
I think you testified earlier that the book itself, do you agree? The book contained themes of inclusion, correct?
Yes.
It contains themes of acceptance, correct?
Yes.
And it includes themes of respect and kindness for people's differences, correct? And those are differences in race, correct?
I don't know that it specifically, but it probably implied that since everyone in the book is of different races.
In terms of the,
I haven't memorized the book, sorry. If you have a specific part you would like me to look at, I can do that.
please turn to the left. Please start to look at each shadow.
Yes. I'm looking at this.
Can you read, can you read it to yourself as part of the record? Can you read that page where it starts, I look at each shadow, no two are the same. On each happy face, there's no trace of shame. Each different and special and fully unique. No color stronger, no colors weak. You see that?
Yes.
Is your position that these don't reflect themes of inclusion for race?
I think you could infer that.
These kinds of lessons about respect for yourself, respect for others, those are valuable for students. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And having discussions around acceptance and inclusion are valuable. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And so you would agree that acceptance and inclusion are not divisive, correct?
Correct.
Turn to exhibit. Exhibit 5. Second to last page. You testified earlier, Exhibit 5 is the slides from the training pre-conference. Excuse me, exhibit in the full. School exhibit 5.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be looking.
You're in the 3-ring binder at Exhibit 5.
Exhibit 5. Okay,
Second
not
to
over
last
here.
page.
These exhibits. Okay? And what page did you say?
Second to last page.
Okay.
See the honeycomb calendar there?
Yes.
What's the honeycomb calendar?
We have a Leader of the Week program and a monthly recognition of students who show character traits or different things like that we work on through our PBIS.
In February, the character trait that you were promoting was hashtag be accepting.
Yes.
So acceptance was the character trait that you were promoting in that correct?
Yes.
And that was the same month that Ms. Renderly bought this book at the book fair, correct? February?
If the date of the book fair was February, then yes, that would be correct.
Teachers in your school should educate students on what is right and wrong. Would you agree?
In general terms, but there's things that they probably should not be instructing them on as far as right and wrong if it's something outside of what's done at school.
Should teachers have a role in teaching moral issues?
I think it would depend on what you consider moral, but I don't think they should interfere with their parents' values.
Teaching children not to discriminate against each other because of their race is okay, correct?
No, it's not okay.
It's not okay to teach not to discriminate?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me if it was okay to discriminate.
Right, no,
It is not okay to
I'm asking
discriminate.
the opposite of that. Teaching children not to discriminate against each other because of their race is an okay message for educators, correct?
Yes.
And teaching children not to discriminate against each other because of gender is an okay thing to teach for educators, correct?
Yes.
The teacher witnesses bullying because of gender. Should they take action?
Yes, they should report it to the administration.
How should educators know the difference between an appropriate and an inappropriate moral issue for the students?
There are certain things that we teach at school, like be nice to each other, be kind, share, all those types of things. But we have to be cautious of where we move into our own moral values and things that we do.
So where is that line?
I think that's something that you have to know in the moment that it's happening.
You use professional judgment to do that, correct?
Correct.
But there is no clear line as to where is and is not the place to stop teaching moral values, correct?
I would have to say yes.
You had testified earlier about your familiarity, I think you said you pulled the gifted standards, correct? I'm asking about your testimony earlier. You said you had checked with the gifted standards.
Correct.
Can you look at Exhibit 8, not in the free reminder, but in educators? Do you have?
I do.
Which one are you looking at? Conditional? You already have it. You have it. You have it.
It's not that big.
Not that they would. Not put it. Put it here. Are these the gifted standards that you reviewed, that you had testified to earlier?
Yes.
You would admit these standards into evidence as Exhibit 8?
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, there, exhibit, educator exhibit 8 is admitted without objection.
Looking at the standards here, there are 10 on the page, correct?
Yes.
And they're noted G1 to G10. Can you look at G5, relationships and connections?
Okay.
Is it your testimony that by reading My shadow is purple, Ms. Brindley was not relying on G5 relationships, connections. Students will make relationships and connections among various topics and disciplines.
I don't teach gifted, so I can't determine some of this because that's not my expertise.
You were there testified.
I apologize.
I apologize.
However, there is a loose connection there, yes. However, the district provides the resources they're to use for those standards.
And we'll talk about those resources.
Okay.
We're asking now about this. Look,
Okay.
look, community relayouts are a useful way students can build relationships. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
The community relayouts allow connections. Students make connections among different topics between their peers, correct?
Sure.
Look at G6, communication. Communication is another standard, correct?
Yes.
For the standard, students will interact and exchange ideas, feelings, information, thoughts, and knowledge with others. Do you see that?
I do.
Students can do this by learning to communicate through a variety of modalities, correct?
Yes.
When you create an opportunity to exchange ideas, you will be furthering the standard, correct?
Yes.
In reading My Shadow is Purple, the students were allowed to interact and exchange their ideas. Isn't that true?
Yes, at the beginning, but then they stopped.
And in reading My Shadow is Purple and completing the exercise, they were allowed to express their thoughts and knowledge with others,
Yes.
correct? Looking at G9, respect for others, this is a gifted standard. The standard states that students will be respectful members of their communities. You see that?
Yes.
Reading a book that teaches how to respect and value individual differences would be aligned with this standard. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Did you review the shadow poems that the students created after reading the book?
I did see something, yes.
From your perspective, did you see self-reflection in those poems?
Yes.
Was there any? Sorry.
Piece of technology going on. Are you taking it?
You seem to take it out.
All right, go ahead.
In those poems, did you see anything obscene?
No.
Did you see anything sexual?
No.
Did you see anything harmful?
No.
The poems themselves, were they divisive?
I did not look at all of them, but I did. The ones I saw, I did not.
They were not divisive, the ones
The ones I saw, I did not.
You testified earlier about training, the training that you had conducted through Exhibit 5. This is in the three-ring binder, Exhibit 5. How long did this training last?
It was part of a larger meeting, so I can't remember the exact time. It was a year. It was over a year ago.
Was it all day?
No,
Was it part of the morning?
it was part of the morning meeting.
So was it more than an hour?
I actually don't know if it was morning or afternoon, but the meeting was probably more an hour, but the training itself was not more than an hour. No.
Okay, so the training was less than an hour?
Yes.
Okay. You know how many slides? Do you know how many slides? Was every slide that's presented in Exhibit 5 presented during that training?
Yes, I think so. You're talking about those actual slides for changing that, or do you mean the whole entire deck?
This whole.
It appears that way, yes.
Everything in Exhibit 5, that was part of the training.
There's lots of different topics in this training, but yes.
Were you the person that presented the training?
I presented the specific parts. My assistant principal and I presented this all together, so I can't say who specifically said each slide, but I typically do most of it.
So let's turn to the part that deals with policies that are issued in this case. Doesn't have page numbers, which seems to be 4 pages. So at the back, let's start with IFAA-R, legal and policy update.
Okay?
You presented this part of the training.
Yes, my assistant principal probably spoke as well. We were both standing in front of the room together, but I mean,
These 4 slides, did you spend more than 10 minutes on these?
I would think so. I don't remember the exact time in it, but there was a lot to discuss, so I'm sure it was probably more.
Okay, so for the whole training was an hour.
I can't remember the exact time frame of the training.
Trying to establish how long you spoke it. Am I correct that in the training you're referring to, you read the slides to the people in the room, correct?
Yes,
And there was no more discussion during that training, correct?
Your Honor, that does not reflect the information that I given in the training.
I'll sustain the objection.
She said the discussion took place at a later time. I asked her at this training.
Your Honor, that's again, that's incorrect.
I already sustained the objection. Ask the question differently.
Did the training include anything more than reading the slides to the educators?
we read the slides and then we gave extra information as well.
Okay. Is that extra information?
Like examples or just, like slides or talking points that you want to make sure that you say. So we said, I'm sure that there were other words spoken. We didn't just read the slides.
What were those other words?
Your Honor, she's already.
I don't have a recollection of the exact words.
Hold on, please. Let's get hold on, Smith. What's your objection, Ms. Rose?
I mean, I just think she's already, but I'll retract it, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Kelly, you can answer it if you can.
I don't have a recollection of my exact script.
Was there a script?
No, I meant like what I said.
These slides reference IFAA-R and IKB. Do you see that?
Yes.
How long did you spend discussing IKB-R, controversial issues policy?
Again, I don't recall the exact time frame.
Did you provide the educators, or I think you did, let me ask you this, you didn't provide the educators with any definition of what is controversial, did you?
It says in here about personal political beliefs means intentionally encouraging I can't remember the exact words that I said, but I know what it says on the slide. I don't have the exact memory of what I exactly said, so I can't speak to that.
There's nothing on the slide that tells us what controversial is, is there?
No. But, I mean, I was speaking to adults. I think most people know what controversial means.
By your definition, controversial, as you testified, means when 2 people disagree about something, correct?
Yes?
And the issues of controversial issues, when it talks about espousing personal political beliefs, it references that statute there. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then there's a quote about espousing personal political beliefs. You see that? Could you
Yes.
read that to yourself?
To myself? Yes.
The policy itself limits its application of espousing personal political beliefs to those beliefs concerning divisive concepts. Isn't that correct?
That's what it states.
That's what it states. Is that the policy that is enforced?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you say that's just what it says. Is that how you enforce the policy? That this policy on controversial issues is limited to when you are espousing personal political beliefs concerning divisive concepts.
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, do you enforce
I
the
don't know
policies
exactly
as they're
what you're
written?
asking me to say.
Do you enforce these policies as they're written?
I enforce the policies of the school district.
As they're written? And
I don't change the words.
You don't change the words and you don't deviate from what they say, right?
I don't create my own policy.
Correct. So if the policy says that espousing personal political beliefs means encouraging or attempting to persuade and indoctrinate a student on personal beliefs concerning divisive concepts, that means this applies to divisive concepts, correct?
It appears so.
Would you give a definition of what is a divisive concept at that training?
It states it on the previous slide.
Divisive concept?
It states it on the second slide. State law prohibits the use of material that advocates divisive concepts, and then it says content advocating race scapegoating or race stereotyping.
So is that the Compton School District's position on what is a divisive concept?
I was given these slides by the district. We all were principals, so I'm assuming if they gave it to me, that would be theirs.
So that's the position of the policy, is that divisive concepts of this content advocating race scapegoating, race stereotyping.
I'm just saying what it says on the slide. That's what I was given by the district.
Do you have a definition of divisive concept?
According to this definition, I abide by the policies of the school district, so if that's what they say it is, that's what I have to abide by.
Did you provide any books or resources that identify what might violate this policy?
I did not.
Did you provide any book list or any kind of list of books that would say, don't read these books, this violates these policies?
I did not.
Same question for IFAA-R. Did you provide any examples of books that might violate IFAA-R's? I'm sorry, IKB? Excuse me.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Did you provide a list of books that might violate Administrative Rule IKB?
I did not.
Did you make any reference in your explanation of these policies to issues of race?
I presented what was given to me by the district on the slide, so whatever was there, I tried to help them understand the slides, etc. So if there was a slide, under one about divisive concepts, I'm sure I did say something. I didn't give a book example, but I probably read the slide and made sure, I wanted to make sure people understood.
Okay, and you said you did have some discussion after that.
We did not have discussion, but I may have said something other than was on the slide, but I don't recall exactly what I
But
said.
there was no discussion.
No, there was not a discussion. I don't remember one.
Are you familiar with the policy that's called the Parent Bill of Rights?
Yes,
Did you provide training that day on the Parent Bill of Rights?
I provided the training that was listed in these 4 slides.
If it's not in these 4 slides, is it correct then that you did not provide any training on the Parent Bill of Rights during this training?
I believe that one of these slides is referring to things in the Parent Bill of Rights, but I don't think I said those words exactly.
Was there any express direction not to read my shadow as book?
Are you asking me if I told her not to read the book? No, I did not tell her not to read the book. At that time, after she had read it, we talked about that, but at this time, I did not.
You had testified that there was a training in January of this year that Ms. Renderly had received information about brain pop being banned.
I did not say brain pop was banned.
Oh, I apologize. You had testified about training in January 2023 where you discussed supplemental materials, correct?
Correct.
I think as you sit here today, do you recall Ms. Renderly being at that training?
I can't remember exactly who was in the room, but I know she was present at school that day, and she's part of Guiding Coalition, so I would assume that she was in the meeting.
And do you recall Ms. Renderly referencing or texting you, asking permission to be excused from that training because she had to meet with her master's level professor?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall giving her permission not to be at that training?
I can't recall that I did or not, but
If I sent you a text dated January 31st, 2005, from Ms. Renderly that says, I had a team's meeting with my professor after dismissal. Do you need me for GC? I'll be late. I have a research project checking. And you respond, no, all good, no worries. Is that refresh your memory?
it's possible.
Right here.
to be that way.
Remembering now request, do you agree that Ms. Ringley was given permission by you not to attend that training?
It says
Remember,
that
no, it said, yeah, it's too late.
That's true. You do
Objection
that?
sustained. Rephrase it.
Remember, do you remember giving Ms. Ringley permission, saying, do you need me for this GC? And you saying, no, I'll get it in the work. Correct?
well, I think I was referencing her being late.
That's fine. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Ringley being there as you see her today?
I can't remember exactly everyone that was in the room.
Did you follow up with her to provide her the information you gave in that training?
No. It's posted in our teams though usually, so that should have been there.
Right, but you didn't do anything affirmative
I did
to
not.
make sure she had that information.
When you're not going to be at the meeting, it's typically the person's responsibility to make sure they have the information so they can disseminate it to their team.
You've been the principal at US Elementary since Ms. Ringley was transferred to the school, correct?
She was there before I was there.
What year did you get to the school?
2019.
And she was there when you got there?
Yes.
2019?
Well, yeah, 2019.
Since you've gotten there, you've performed the evaluation observations for Ms. Ringley, correct?
Yes.
And you're the one that is responsible for completing her summative evaluation, correct?
Correct.
The TEAC system is the system that the state requires teachers to be evaluated by, correct?
Correct.
You evaluate the educator each year, correct?
Yeah.
You conduct multiple...
My assistant principal and I share the responsibility.
We'll speak with Jessica's respect to Ms.
Okay.
Ringley. You evaluate her each year, and you conduct observations of Ms. Ringley each year, correct?
Correct.
You're the person responsible for engaging in professional development with the educator, identifying areas of weakness, correct?
Yes.
And you're the person that's responsible to rate the teachers on their professional standards, correct?
Correct.
And the rating scale is 1 is the lowest and 4 is the highest, correct?
Correct.
And 3s and 4s are generally considered acceptable and then above average, correct?
Yes.
The exact language. Level 3 is the expected level of performance, correct?
Yes.
And level 4 is above that, exceeding the expected level of performance.
Correct.
The TEAC's handbook suggests that you should add comments to each standard when you're rating the educator. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And that's the opportunity that the supervisor has to include any direction to the educator as to what's going right or wrong, correct?
Yes.
In preparation for this hearing, did you review Ms. Rinderly's evaluations? Excuse me.
Yes.
And it gets a little weird because of COVID, right? In 2019, were there summative evaluations completed?
I think that was 2020, the end of the year, so I
So
think that
2019 there were
not. Right.
And then 2020, 2021 there were.
I believe that to be true. Wait. Yes, I believe that to be true.
Okay.
I mean, I was incorrect with that. I don't know.
Is this educator 15? 16? What was there 15?
how you scored Ms. Rinderly in 2021, the year before. You said that
The year you gave me,
the year before we get to that.
I do not recall the top of my head, but during the COVID year, is that what you're
The
talking
year
about?
after that, not 1920, but 2021.
I don't recall her having any marks that were not satisfactory.
And that goes for as long as you've been her evaluator, correct? Up till 21, 22, and then we'll go forward. So looking at what I handed you as exhibits 15, the 21, 22 school year, you were the administrator that conducted that evaluation, correct?
Yes.
Can you turn to page 19 of the document?
I'm there.
There are 10 standards in the summative assessment for an educator to be rated on, correct?
Yes.
On page 19, did Ms. Rinderly receive any score lower than 4?
She did not.
On page 20, did Ms. Rinderly receive any score lower than 4 on page 20?
She received one score lower than 4.
And then that's in the learning environment, correct?
Correct.
And you rated her as meeting expectations, correct?
Correct.
And your comment was that she provides a warm, attractive environment for students to learn, correct?
Correct. I
And
was
this,
referring to the physical space in that sentence, even though it doesn't say that. That's what I meant. The environment there was in the physical space.
well, it doesn't say that, does it?
No, it does not.
And you- Right. It just says that she provides a warm, attractive environment for students to learn.
Correct.
Then you talk about the physical space.
Correct.
There's flexible seating, collaborative space for students to work together, correct?
Yes.
And you also note that the students understand the rituals, correct?
Yes.
The routines and procedures, correct?
Yes.
And they take ownership of their learning.
Yes.
Is there any negative comments here?
No.
The standard itself addresses providing an orderly environment conducive to learning and that encourages respect, correct?
Yes.
So if there was anything going on in the environment that didn't encourage respect for the students, it would be listed here, correct?
Correct.
At the bottom of page 20, there's a standard called professionalism. Do you see that? This TEACS defines professionalism as a teacher exhibiting commitment to ethics and mission and participates in growth opportunities to support learning and contribute to the profession, correct?
Yes.
Your comments note that Ms. Renderly exhibits a commitment to the school mission and vision. Do you see that?
Yep.
If there was concern, strike that. You also note down there in the fourth line that she mentors teachers on her team, correct?
She did.
And she was a leader in the school, wasn't she?
That year?
Yeah.
You mean like a team leader? I'm not sure if she
She
was assigned
actually-
as team leader, but she did help others and people went to her for advice. Yes.
Well, you note that she mentors teachers on her team.
Correct. That's
So she provided mentorship to other
Correct.
teachers, correct?
yes.
She provided that not just in gifted education, but in mathematics also, correct?
Yes, I said that.
What did you rate Ms. Renderly in communication that year?
4.
4. That's the highest rating you can get, correct?
Correct.
Communication means that she's communicating effectively with her students, right?
Correct.
And it also means that she's communicating effectively with parents, correct?
Yes.
And you actually took time to note that she continually communicates effectively with students, parents, and other stakeholders that enhance student learning. You see that?
Yes.
You also noted that she uses social media and CTLS, correct?
Yes.
CTLS is the Cobb Teacher Learning System, correct?
Correct.
And that's also where you referenced you would be getting supplemental materials, correct?
That's where the district provided resources are, yes.
Can I see council for just 1 second? Thank you.
In the communication comments, you said she uses social media, she uses student journaling, correct?
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about.
It's page 21.
Okay. Which number you
It's standard 10, she received a 4. Your comment, middle of that comment, the teacher uses student journals to give immediate feedback to students and parents, correct?
She does.
She used technology to communicate with all stakeholders, correct?
Yes.
In the TEKS standards, if there's a problem with parent communication, it would be identified here in a performance rating, correct?
Correct.
There is no negative comment about Ms. Renderly's communication with parents in the classroom, correct?
Correct.
This is 16, good one. All right, educator exhibit 16 will be admitted without objection.
I'm handing you a document marked Exhibit 16. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
Is that the evaluation for Katie Renderly for the 2022-23 school year?
Yes.
Turn to page page 9 of the document. You're required to do 2 observations in Ms. Renderly in a school year, correct?
Correct.
That's because Ms. Renderly has reached a level in her career where she doesn't require a 3rd observation, correct?
Yes.
It's called flex part.
Correct.
Teachers that aren't performing aren't allowed to move on to that next stage, correct? They have to remain in a 3 observation requirement if you show that you have
You have
a
3 per semester.
3 per semester. But
It's
teachers,
2 walkthroughs and a formal observation.
correct. But teachers who are on the flex, who have moved forward in their careers, do not have that 3rd one, correct?
They have just 1 per, 2 per year.
You observed Ms. Renderly on November 9th, correct?
Yes.
Did you make any negative notations about Ms. Renderly's performance on November 9th?
No.
And Ms. Renderly didn't receive a mark below meet expectations 3, correct?
Correct.
And when you described her learning environment, that she met expectations on page 10, you noted that Ms. Renderly provides a classroom environment that's orderly and productive, correct?
Yes.
that procedures and policies are clear to students and allow for productivity. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And when you evaluated Ms. Rinderly on her professionalism, she received the highest mark. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And when you evaluated her on communication, she received the highest mark. Isn't that correct?
Can't tell. It's like that one. It looks like that one might be 3. I can't
She met or exceeded expectations. I can't tell.
The category is not at the top, and it looks like it's shifted over slightly, so I would think that's a 3, but it still meets expectation.
And there's no negative comments in communication. Correct?
No.
And if there was any concerns that you had about Ms. Rinderly's communication with stakeholders, parents, or students, it would be in this document, correct?
Correct.
You had a mid-year conference with Ms. Rinderly, correct?
Yes. On 11/28.
11/28, you had a mid-year conference. Did you have any concerns that were expressed in the document?
No.
Okay. Did you have any concerns with Ms. Rinderly's performance at that conference?
No.
Did you express any concerns with Ms. Rinderly about her performance at that conference?
No.
You evaluated Ms. Rinderly on February 8th, isn't that true?
Yes.
Sorry, you observed her. I apologize. In fact, you actually tweeted out about your observation from that day. Do you recall that?
I usually do that for each teacher.
It's already out the way.
This is educator 17. We'll stand admitted without objection.
Is this a picture of the tweet that you tweeted on February 8th?
Yes.
Is that your comment, love watching the think tank at Kay Rinderly's class?
Yes.
There are 2 photos of the tweet, correct? Is that Ms. Rinderly on the floor with her students?
Looks like they're at a table, maybe, but yes. In the green jacket, that looks like it's green.
And it appears that they're working on projects involving, if you can look and see on the first picture, issues with our country. Do you see that?
I can't tell exactly what it says, but I mean, you probably can see this.
Educator Exhibit 18 is admitted without objection.
This is a project where they're dealing with issues about the country. Do you see that?
Looks like it.
And they're brainstorming, it appears to be with a list of issues that affect our country.
Yes, if I recall, this was I think I observed her on the beginning of the unit that she had just started.
Correct. You remember what they were discussing?
I think she had them walking around doing different posters, so kids were doing different things, depending on what the topic she wrote on the top of the project, the paper. Is that what you're asking?
Right.
It's happened to all of us, but have you got it silenced down so we're not going to do it again? Thank you.
Do you remember the discussions we did having?
I think they were brainstorming different things they could possibly do as part of the time.
You know,
Seeing how it looks in the room.
you know that this is where the kids were souls on fire for sure.
I think she used that quote in the classroom, or one of the kids did, so I think it doesn't sound, I don't know anything like that, but I believe I got that, either one of the children said it, or maybe it was referenced, but maybe I made it up, I don't know, but yes, they were very excited about what they were doing.
You were supportive of that, correct?
What?
Of this exercise?
Yeah, this is a district lesson that's approved by the district.
And you were supportive of Mr. Newley's interaction with their students that you pictured here? So you
Would you be supportive? Do you mean just that I approved it? Yeah, I mean, she was.
You
Her lesson
agree
was
with
good.
nothing negative about it?
No.
Looking at your February observation, page 12 of that observation, which is exhibit 19. No. 16.
We're in the same document?
The 22, 23 observation. Evaluation, page 12 is the observation. Your ratings from that observation are all level 4 and 3, correct?
Yes.
She met and exceeded all expectations during your observation there, correct?
Correct.
And in instructional planning, where she exceeded expectations, you noted her plans include rigorous and thought-provoking concepts that promote higher order thinking skills, correct?
Yes.
And similar to the year before, when you rated her learning environment as exceeding expectations, you noted that she provides a classroom environment where gifted students feel supported and encouraged, correct?
Yes. Previous year, she was in a different type setting, so it was different. The same thing, I'm just saying, just to note, she taught the 4th grade the year before, she teaches gifted in this lesson.
Right, and then last year, her kids were supported and encouraged in the homeroom, and this year, her gifted kids were supported and encouraged according to your studies, correct?
Correct.
And under professionalism and communication, 2 of the issues that Ms. Rinderly has been accused of being necessarily terminated for, you rated her as exceeding expectation in both, correct?
On this particular one, it appears it's a 3, which would be proficient. I can't tell if the heading right there, but it looks to be shifted over slightly, which makes me think it's, when I line the papers up, it looks more like a 3 than a 4, but there's no headings at the top of the page.
Is there any negative comments at all?
No.
Right. Is there any place on this document where you have indicated Ms. Rinderly is not following policy?
I did not.
Any place in this document where you're indicating Ms. Rinderly is not engaging appropriately with parents?
This was her formative observation? Yes, I did not document that there.
Right. Any place in this document where you indicate Ms. Rinderly is causing students to feel concern or uneasiness?
No.
you signed the summative evaluation for this educator, isn't that true?
I signed it, you mean I submitted it to the portal? Yes,
And that date is June 7th, isn't that true?
correct.
And
Or I don't know the date, honestly. I know it was, let me go back.
I'll show you,
It says by Sheridan finalized it on June 7th, correct?
June 7th. And that's after the end of school, isn't that true?
It is.
And was there any evaluation that you submitted later than June 7th?
No,
This was generally evaluations are submitted in May, isn't that true?
yes,
The negative comments that Ms. Renderly received in the summative evaluation at Standard 2 instructional planning, you noted that she had not abided by district policies and procedures when selecting supplemental instruction. Is that with reference to the My Shadow Purple book?
yes,
The negative comment, excuse me, I should say it, the level 2 rating that Ms. Renderly received in professionalism, you stated that she didn't consistently carry out duties in accordance with the school board policies or decision-making skills for choosing curriculum and using district-approved resources, broke with board policy, causing disruption in the school. That's related to reading My Shadow is Purple, correct?
yes,
The level 2 comment, or the level 2 rating that she received in communication, that she does not consistently create a climate of accessibility and approachability with students, and not being informed about content and topics discussed in classroom. Is that related to the My Shadow is Purple issue?
yes,
You noted that she doesn't consistently create a climate of accessibility. But just 3 months before, in fact, a whole year before that, and all the way up until March of 2023, you don't know any issues in these evaluations about consistently creating a climate of accessibility, do you?
I did not.
You don't know anything about approachability with students in these prior evaluations, do you?
I did not.
You don't know anything about any problem with consistency with communication with parents, do you?
I did not.
Other than the summative evaluative scores that you issued on June 7th, which was 2 months after the March 8th issue, 3 months after, there are no other indications that Ms. Renderly's performance has been anything but exemplary. Isn't that true?
According to the paperwork we're looking at, or in general?
According to these TEKS evaluations?
According to the TEKS, no.
And it's your job to record performance in these evaluations, isn't it?
Yes,
These evaluations are made to document educator performance year over year so that decisions about personnel can be made. Isn't that correct?
yes,
If you do not put information about the educator's performance in these TEKS evaluations, then you aren't fulfilling the duties and responsibilities of your position. Isn't that true?
one more time?
It's your duty and responsibility to put that information in these evaluations, correct?
Yes,
And it's your duty and responsibility to be honest in putting that information in these evaluations, correct?
yes,
So the 2021-22 evaluation, 2022-23 evaluation are your honest view of Ms. Renderly's performance during those school years, correct?
yes,
You had testified earlier to the 2021 and the year before that evaluations.
Any objections to either educator 19 or 20?
No, thank you.
All right, so educator exhibit 19, which takes effectiveness system ratings for 2020, 2021, is admitted without objection. And then educator exhibit 20, which is the teacher keys effectiveness system rating for 2019, 2020, is also admitted without objection.
You testified earlier that the charge letter that states that there was a loss of confidence, did you agree that there is a loss of confidence in Ms. Brindley's ability to perform the duties and responsibilities of the position? That's still your testimony?
Yes.
What are the criteria for a loss in confidence according to the district?
I wasn't speaking for the district, I was speaking for myself.
And so there's no policies in Cobb County that express what constitutes a loss of confidence, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
There's no matrix like we have the fatigues that defines what a loss in confidence is, correct?
I've never seen that.
And so there's really no standard for an educator to know what a loss in confidence means according to the Cobb County School District, correct?
I would have to say that.
Would one parent's complaint create a loss in confidence?
No.
How many parent complaints are required until there's a loss of confidence?
That's not my reason for loss of confidence.
Okay. So, that's my question. Is there a certain number of parent complaints that constitute a loss of confidence?
No.
So there's no number that an educator can know when they reach that number. They could be fired for loss of confidence.
No.
I think we covered this, and I'll just be quick about this. Would you agree that a loss in confidence would be based on performance that would be reflected in the evaluation, correct?
The evaluation is done. Are you saying, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Loss of confidence that you would conclude that you have would be reflected in the performance of an educator in their evaluation, right?
Yes.
It would be perhaps reflected in a performance plan that was developed, right? We used to call them PDPs back in the day. I don't know what to call them.
You
now.
could.
Professional development plans are plans that are created so that educators can know what their educational weaknesses are and work on them, right?
Yes.
There was maybe a letter of direction that's issued from a supervisor to an employee so they understand that there is a problem, correct?
Yes.
There would be formal disciplinary action that would indicate that there may be a pending loss of confidence because performance is waning, correct?
Yes.
Certainly, I think we established that core evaluations would do that as well, correct?
Yes.
You didn't put Ms. Brindley on any performance plan, did you?
No.
In the time that you've been principal and supervisor, Ms. Brindley, she's never been on a performance plan, has she?
No.
You didn't issue Ms. Brindley any letters of direction, did you?
No.
In the time that you've been principal, you've never issued her a letter of direction, have you?
No.
She's never been suspended, correct?
Until this event? No. Not under my,
She wasn't
I have
suspended.
no idea what happened before me, but
Right, but
to
she
my
wasn't
knowledge.
suspended, she was placed on administrative.
Correct. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
You have, in fact, so much confidence in Ms. Brindley that she was actually sent to a training in Athens in March of 2023, wasn't she?
She and the other target teacher, actually, they both requested to go, and most gifted teachers in the district attend that conference. It's a conference for gifted teachers.
Right, and the district pays for that, correct?
Our school paid for that, or maybe the foundation. I'm not sure exactly where the funds were from, but it's a local purchase.
She doesn't pay for it on her own, does she?
No,
Those are funds that are expended by Due West Elementary in some way, correct?
correct.
She was sent to a conference by the school. Do you recall what the conference was about?
It was I think it's the Georgia Gifted Conference. I don't know the exact title of the conference off the top of my head.
And when she returned, you still had confidence in her when she returned on March 8th, correct?
Yes?
Right. In fact, I think it was your testimony, it wasn't parent complaints that made you this confidence, but it was that she disagreed or would not acknowledge that this book was inappropriate, correct?
Correct.
You have a disagreement professional disagreement with your supervisor. Are you concerned that you'll lose their confidence?
Depends on if I've broken the policy. If I've broken a policy and I disagree about that, and
Your testimony was that you lost confidence because of this disagreement. I'm asking you, if you disagree with your supervisor, would you be concerned you would be terminated?
I'm not following you.
Is there a standard of strike that? You had testified earlier that there was a lesson, the council asked you about a lesson in this room that we had, these were the components of the lesson. You weren't in the classroom that day.
Correct.
You had received emails from parents. You had not forwarded those emails on to Ms. Rinderly, correct?
Which emails are you supposed to?
The emails that you received from parents.
The only email that she received, I think, in direct,
Sorry, say again.
I think the only email she directly received was the one that was sent from I don't know if I can say the name or not, but.
Was a parent of a student in the fifth grade class?
Correct. I did not forward her the emails.
You had testified that there were verbal complaints and calls from the parent in school about this issue. Did you document those verbal complaints anywhere?
No.
Those verbal complaints would have been a part of the investigation into Ms. Rinderly's termination. Would you agree?
Yes.
So the investigation doesn't complain that, or doesn't contain those parents' views, correct?
I didn't have it written down, so I couldn't.
When you had a meeting with Ms. Rinderly, you said that she asked you questions about laws and legal topics. Do you remember that?
I did.
And she asked you what was divisive. Do you remember that?
All right. I believe we've been over this line of testimony already.
We certainly have. If you've got a different line, I mean, if you're trying to bring that back for a different question, that's fine.
I'll move on. You testified that as part of the policy, educators have to vet the supplemental materials, correct?
Yes.
And vetting means reading the materials, right?
Yes, and analyzing what making sure that it's appropriate.
And making a professional judgment on whether or not they're appropriate.
Correct.
You said when the complaint came in, at some point you asked Ms. Rinderly to give you a statement about what happened, correct?
Correct.
And she complied with your directive, correct?
She did.
She didn't give you any problems with that.
No.
When Ms. Rinderly gave you her statement and when you talked to Ms. Rinderly, she told you that was a student-led discussion that happened in the classroom, correct?
You mean the discussion before they read the book?
Correct.
Yes.
And that was before they read the book, that was preview of the book, correct?
Yes,
As an educator, Ms. Brindley is entitled to use her professional judgment, isn't she?
yes,
There isn't a policy that prohibits the use of non-school materials, is there?
no.
It's not prohibited, is it?
I think that's why we have a supplemental policy.
Right. And the supplemental policy itself isn't prohibitive. It says that you can use these materials, correct?
If you do these things. yeah.
Right. You had testified to a form, I think it's exhibit. Exhibit 7 in your free reminder. Is it your testimony that every teacher that has a non-district authorized book has to fill out this form?
No,
There's discretion as to when this form is to be used, correct?
yes,
You have given testimony for a good amount of time about the parent complaints that were from last year, correct? At any time did Ms. Brindley not follow a directive when you had talked to her about those complaints?
no, she complied.
Did she ever refuse to meet with the parent?
When I asked her, no.
You had testified earlier about 11 students on a list where parents had indicated they didn't want their child to be in Ms. Brindley's class. You remember that?
Yes,
I know the names are redacted, and I'm asking from your memory. Do you recall some of those students were siblings? Isn't that true?
I would have to look at that.
It's redacted.
I can't remember who was on the list.
It's possible that some of those students
I
were
have
siblings.
640 students in our school. I can't remember everybody's name on this.
And how many students would Ms. Brindley have in her full school?
During full school, what?
On her class list? How many students is she?
It depends on, in gifted or in gen ed.
All the students that she is responsible for.
I think gifted classes range, like sometimes she may have 15, sometimes she may have 20 per day, and she teaches first through fifth grade. So for a week's time, around 100 students.
You're not aware of some of those students were siblings?
I can't remember the names off the top of my head. I'm sorry. If you gave me a list of names, I could tell you if they were siblings.
You had testified to the resources on CTLS, that's the teacher learning system at the district level.
Correct.
Those resources are pre-approved, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you aware that there was a Queer America incorporated LGBTQ history podcast that's a pre-approved on the CTLS?
I'm not.
Did you know that the age range for that was pre-K through 12?
I'm not aware of it, so I would not know the age range.
I'm asking, were you aware that there are 68 pre-approved material resources that include LGBTQ issues?
I was not aware.
One minute, I think I'm done. We can all go get over. We don't have any further questions at this time. Maybe some redirect.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Ms. Coates, before we begin, panel, I'd like to get Ms. Kale finished so that we get her back to school, but if y'all are starving, we'll pick up there. Otherwise, we'll go ahead
I'll
and
be
read.
very
All right, you may begin your redirect.
May I have 1 second so that I need to break for?
You may.
Okay. Ms. Field, just a couple of very quick follow-up questions. And I won't even ask you to look back at the exhibit standards unless you need to, but Mr. Goodmark asked you about the gifted standards. Is there anywhere in those gifted standards that exempts a teacher from being required to follow the district policies on instructional resources, controversial issues, or parents' right to direct the religious, moral, and upbringing of their children?
No.
Mr. Goodmark, I think seemed to insinuate that you lost confidence only because Ms. Ridley did not apologize to you. Can you clarify what led into your loss of confidence of Ms. Ridley?
Yes, when we brought this issue to her attention and we had conversation and interviews and investigations, there never seemed to be any type of acknowledgement of the fact that this was a controversial topic. So if I don't know that you understand something, then I can't be sure that you won't do it again.
Ms. Ridley has referenced the discussion and debate between the students on the pronouns in her instruction to them on they as being a student-led discussion. Is the teacher still responsible for the discussion that happens at the beginning of an activity?
Yes.
Ms. Ridley referenced her professional judgment. Does using professional judgment mean that a teacher has free reign, or is there an expectation of good professional judgment?
There is an expectation of good professional judgment.
In your mind, is there any doubt that this book should have been brought to your attention and the process for vetting and approving it as a supplemental resource should have been followed?
There's no doubt that the process should have been followed.
I have no further questions.
All right, before Ms. Kales leaves, can we get some sort of discussion about the exhibits we discussed, exhibits 15, 19, and 20, the rest, so that there's no confusion for the record?
To clear the record, Ms. Ridley was married previously, and her married name was Ms. Beeson. That any evaluations referencing Ms. Beeson is Ms. Ridley. They are one and the same.
All right, thank you. Mark. All right, any objections to Ms. Kale being excused? All right, thank you, Ms. Kale, for your patience. You may step in. Okay, is 2 o'clock? Will that give us enough time? Okay, so we're gonna stand in recess until 2 p.m.
the first 2 pages we come into issue. And on the first page, the dad is blue, a traditional gender color. The mom is pink, a traditional gender color. Those are still the colors we use in gender reveals, right? But on the second page, it says there's only those choices, a 2 or a 1. And that is saying that there's only binary choices, right? Blue or pink. And then says then he says his shadow is different. And then there's a whole bunch of pages, and then you get to the school dance. The character who presents as a boy wears the suit top made by his father, a traditional outfit for a male to dance, and then wears a skirt made by his mother. And we still have the pink and blue, and then the child's shadow is purple. Then the child goes to the dance, and the blue shadows go to the left, and the pink shadows go to the right. The child is in the middle. We're back.
Books and evidence, we don't have to have a book in there.
We're identifying, we've had a lot of questions about what's.
We started
is
at
it
a
wrong?
point, and now we went into a narrative, so
What's the objection, Shmuel?
what's the relevance of her reading the book again? We had direct testimony from investigators. This is somebody who didn't conduct an investigation. She's issued the district's opinion already that Ms. Kinder is required to anything that she says after that would be cumulative and irrelevant, unnecessary.
I'll overrule the objection. That's fine.
So we get to the dance, and the child's in the middle. There's pink and blue, and then the child stands in the middle. And it goes on where the child is encouraged to be blue, encouraged to be pink, and then is told to choose, and the child says, I don't know why I have to choose, and then ends up, through some other pages, being encouraged, you don't have to be blue or pink, you can be something else.
Thank you. Ms. Renderly has told investigators that the book was not about gender identity. Does the district have an opinion on that testimony statement?
We do. The book itself says it's about gender beyond binary. The book itself talks about blue and pink traditional gender colors, and then says that the shadow is purple. It stretches credibility when someone says that this is not about gender when the book itself says it's about gender.
Ms. Renderly also told investigators that reading this book was appropriate and not a controversial topic. What is the district's position on whether this was appropriate to read to elementary age students and whether this was a controversial topic?
This is not appropriate to read to elementary age students. It absolutely is a controversial issue. It is politically polarizing. There are families that have sincerely held religious beliefs on this issue. There are whole churches that have actually split over this issue. There are families that hold moral beliefs on this issue. When you look at a local, state, and federal level, you just look at the legislation that's passed in the last year, which is partisan, involving this issue. When you look at the boycotts on the news, right? All you have to do is look at the Bud Light boycott to know that this is a controversial issue. It is willful disregard and potentially willful ignorance to claim that this is not controversial.
Ms. Renderly has told investigators that the book was about embracing each other, valuing differences, being unique, having multiple interests, inclusivity. Does the district have an opinion on Ms. Renderly's perspective of the book?
We do. It certainly is about those things. Again, she is asking us to put blinders on and pretend that none of it is in the context of gender beyond binary.
And had Ms. Renderly wanted to teach a lesson on inclusivity, did the district have approved resources for her to do so?
We absolutely did. I actually went into CTLS myself, and there were over 1,000 resources under the word inclusivity.
Does the district believe that the book presents a balanced viewpoint on the issue of gender identity and gender as being either binary or fluid?
No, it does not. In fact, you think about the outrage that might have happened if she'd read a book that said, boys are boys, girls are girls, boys should only wear boy clothes, girls should only wear girl clothes, and these are the only choices, which is the other side of this controversy, right? That's what makes it controversial. It incites anger when you say those things on one side of the issue. Just like it incites anger to say that gender goes beyond the binary for a part of our community.
Ms. Renderly told investigators that she told the students to refer to the characters they or them, or the character, because they were arguing about how to refer to the character. What should Ms. Renderly have done in that moment in time?
If she hadn't figured out from reading the book, from reading the back of the book, from the trainings where she had been warned about sensitive topics, when she saw that her children were disagreeing and arguing, she should have known this was a true controversy, and that should have been the end. She had a second choice book, and that would have been the time for it.
Ms. Renderly has stated that the book supports fifth grade or gifted curriculum standards. Does the district agree that this book is necessary in order to implement standards?
Not at all. This book is, first of all, there are no gifted standards about gender identity or gender beyond binary. Second of all, gifted standards are created to address the specific needs of the gifted population, of our gifted children. Those specific needs have to do with, and all of the standards are written and made to address how they function in the world, how they function in the classroom. They really are supposed to be for these children who, these are the kids who are in the high 90th percentile, right? They're gifted, they're extra bright, and they sometimes have a hard time interacting in an appropriate way because they just don't know, right? It's easy for someone who's smart and young to make other children feel not smart. And so that's the kind of thing that the gifted standards are aimed at.
And Ms. Renderly referenced a few of the various standards, and I can't recall all of them off the top of my head at the moment. But do you have any commentary as the district representative on any of the particular gifted standards and whether this book was needed in order to implement them?
It absolutely wasn't. Again, I just, in under 5 minutes, went into CTLS. There were 16 full lessons on 5th grade affective standard. 16 full lessons on 5th grade affective standard. She could have stayed within the guardrails that the district has provided and used those lessons.
Ms. Renderly says that she bought this book on February 13th, approximately a month before she read it to the class. Yet in that month's time, she did not notify her principal. Does the district have an opinion on that decision making?
That is another example of poor judgment. She had plenty of opportunity to discuss this book with Ms. Kale and give Ms. Kale the opportunity to coach her on whether it was appropriate or not.
Well, what if she wasn't sure?
If she wasn't sure, all the more reason she should go talk to Ms. Kale. Ms. Kale was available. If there was any question at all, she should have gone and asked.
Are teachers informed where the pre-approved resources are located?
Oh, yes.
And am I correct that is in CTLS?
CTLS is where we always start with the, when we're training people on how to stay within policy by rails, right? Go to CTLS. CTLS has the resources that they need.
Just take a look at Exhibit 6 and 7 to refresh your memory very quickly, please, in the school district's exhibit notebook. We heard testimony previously about these processes for approving supplemental resources. As the district representative, with respect to My Shadow is Purple, should Ms. Renderly have followed the processes outlined in Exhibits 6 and 7?
Yes, she should have.
Now, Ms. Renderly says, I don't believe the district disagrees with this, that she purchased this book with her own money at the book fair. Does that give her an exemption to having to follow these processes?
No, our teachers are great and purchase resources for themselves all the time. But if there's anything that could be a controversial or sensitive topic, they need to have gone through the process.
Is that true, even if they purchased it with their own money as opposed to school money?
Oh, 100%. If you're bringing it into your classroom, these policies and processes apply.
I want to take a moment to talk about the policies at issue in this case, because we've had some questions about the interpretation of those. If you'll turn to District's Exhibit 2, which is the Instructional Resources Policy. Can you review this policy for us, and in particular, tell us what portions of it were violated by Ms. Renderly's actions?
Yes. Looking specifically at Part 2A, Supplemental Learning Resources, number 3, you'll find that on page 3 of the policy. Non-school materials outside presenters. And it says that the materials shall be supportive of the adopted curriculum for the course being taught and appropriate for the targeted audience. This book and then the following lesson were not supportive of the adopted curriculum. There's nothing about gender beyond binary in the adopted curriculum for fifth grade gifted. And they absolutely, the book was not appropriate for the targeted audience of a class of 10 and 11-year-olds who do not have the maturity, knowledge, or experience to handle it.
You'll turn to the next page on Section B. Is there any section in this portion of the policy that the district believes Ms. Renderly violated?
Yes, B is selection supplemental learning resources. And number 10, which is at the bottom of the page, topics of a sensitive nature, i.e. social, political, religious, should be given a balanced treatment with both pros and cons represented. Ms. Renderly did not provide a balanced treatment of the idea of gender beyond binary.
And turn with me to Section C on the next page. Is there anything in this section that the district believes that Ms. Renderly violated?
Yes, this section requires preview and permission. And it also says that you have to preview regardless of the source before using the materials for whole class instruction. For permission, she should have sought permission from the parents so that they had an opportunity to determine if their child would participate. And then if you look at letter D, she also should have provided an alternative assignment for those children that might have been opted out of this activity.
Thank you. And please turn for us to Exhibit 3, which is, I believe, a permission form. Can you explain the purpose of this form?
This form is for those moments when a teacher needs to gain permission to use a supplemental learning resource.
From a parent?
From a parent, pardon me, yes, it's the parent guardian permission form. This would have been the appropriate form for Ms. Renderly to use to gain permission from parents to participate in the reading of this book and the lesson that followed.
Turn for me, please, to Exhibit 4, which is the controversial issues policy. Can you review this policy and tell us if there are any portions of it that Ms. Renderly violated?
Yes, Ms. Renderly violated letter B, political partisan issues, number 1, 3, and 5. Number 1 reads, district employees shall refrain from using classroom instruction or their relationships with students to influence students or through them, their parents, guardians regarding any one political or partisan side of an issue. Ms. Renderly clearly introduced a topic in her classroom with only one side of the issue promoted, and thus violated number 1. Number 3, as addressed in OCGA 20-2-786, which is commonly known as the Parents' Bill of Rights, parents have the right to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of their children. That text is lifted directly from the law. Therefore, district employees shall not improperly infringe upon this right. Again, we're speaking to the moral or religious training. There are folks with sincerely held religious beliefs when it comes to the topic of gender beyond binary. There are also folks that have some moral beliefs around the topic of gender beyond binary. Ms. Renderly absolutely infringed upon the parents' rights to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of their children. Number 5, instruction. During classroom instruction, and we're going to look specifically at A and B. A, objectivity on all issues shall be observed in instructional procedures, and B, balanced points of view on issues shall be presented. At no time was it presented that boys could be boys and girls could be girls and that there weren't other choices. There was not balance. It was considering gender beyond binary, and this child chose to be an other, right? And there's no moment where the other side of that controversial issue was presented.
Turn for me to Exhibit 21, which may not yet be in evidence, so let me circulate that for everyone. No, I don't know. Am I right? No objection, Your Honor.
All right, District 21 will stand admitted without objection.
Can you identify this policy and tell us whether the district believes that Ms. Renderly violated it?
This is JRB-R, the Parents' Bill of Rights. The district does believe that she violated it. We are required by law to have a policy on violations of the Parents' Bill of Rights. We incorporate the bill by reference and say that we've established the policy in accordance with it. In particular, she violated the portion of the law that is number 3 in the controversial issues amendment.
And is that relating to what?
Objection. I don't have number 3.
She was referring back to the controversial policy.
Exhibit 3.
No. Oh, was it? Well, come on in.
It's Exhibit 4.
To clarify, just for any confusion that perhaps I might have caused, were you referencing to Exhibit 4, paragraph B3?
Yes.
Okay, and can you reread that so that we clear up mine?
As addressed in OCGA 20-2-786, parents have the right to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of their children. Therefore, district employees shall not improperly infringe upon this right.
Very good. Next policy exhibit will be 39. Being introduced without objection, Your Honor.
Number
39.
30. All right, District 39 is admitted without objection.
Can you identify exhibit 39 for the tribunal, please?
This is District Administrative Rule GAGC-R, Employee Ethics. This is the rule in which we adopt the Code of Ethics for Educators promulgated by the Georgia Professional Standards Commission.
Very good. I'll ask you to turn to exhibit 40 next. Exhibit 40 being introduced without objection.
All right, District 40 is admitted without objection.
Can you identify what exhibit 40 is, please?
This is Form GAGC-1, Professional Conduct by Educators.
And tell us the relevance of this form to today's tribunal.
If you turn to page 3 with me, personal private gain, if you look at the two middle bullets, employees shall not use classroom instruction to influence students or through them, their parents, regarding any one political or partisan side of an issue, and then it references the controversial issues policy. Employees shall not coerce students to adopt a particular religious belief or set of beliefs, or to disavow a particular religious belief or set of beliefs.
Does the district believe that Ms. Renderly violated this section of GAGC-1?
Yes, we do.
If you'll turn to exhibit 41. District exhibit 41 is being introduced without objection.
All right, it'll stand admitted without objection.
A minute ago, I asked you about a policy that adopted the Code of Ethics. Can you identify this document for us, please?
This is the Code of Ethics for Educators promulgated by the Georgia Professional Standards Commission.
Does the district believe that Ms. Renderly violated the PSC Code of Ethics as adopted by the Cobb County School District?
Yes, we do.
Can you share for us where in the Code of Ethics the district believes Ms. Renderly violated?
Yes, at the bottom of page 2, standard 4, honesty. An educator shall exemplify honesty and integrity in the course of professional practice. Unethical conduct includes, but is not limited to, falsifying, misrepresenting, or omitting, and follow me to the small 5 on the next page, information submitted in the course of an official inquiry, investigation. Ms. Renderly has maintained that this book is not about gender identity or gender beyond binary. Ms. Renderly has maintained that there is nothing controversial about the topics in the book. And Ms. Rinderly has not been honest about whether she violated these policies knowingly.
Turn your attention for me to standard 9 for a moment.
Standard 9 is on page 4.
Does the district have an opinion as to whether Ms. Rinderly violated standard 9?
She did violate standard 9, professional conduct. An educator shall demonstrate conduct that follows generally recognized professional standards and preserves the dignity and integrity of the education profession. It goes on to talk about unethical conduct, and some of it says any conduct that impairs and or diminishes the certificate holder's ability to function professionally in his or her employment position. And then behavioral conduct that is detrimental to the health, welfare, discipline, or morals of students. In particular, we're concerned that she has impaired her ability to function professionally. Ms. Rinderly's judgment has been evidenced to be so poor, and she has not in any way acknowledged that this was a poor decision. The judgment that we cannot put her into a classroom and trust that this is going to happen again, isn't going to happen again.
I'd like you to turn to Exhibit 15, which is a record exhibit, not in front of the tribunal. But I want to ask you about the basis for the charges against Ms. Rinderly. Can you identify the 3 charges that the school district is proceeding with against